Hi, and welcome back to Gavins SonexB. Well, the time has come, the walrus said, to get on with it. So we will. I'm standing in what is normally our breakfast room, and normally we serve our bed and breakfast customers breakfast in here. I'll give you a quick look round. I've taken all the furniture out apart from the server, but it looks a bit like this. I'll have to go wide angle. There we go. So we've got the door. There's the garage where the aircraft is over there. And then in here is our breakfast room. Normally there are a couple of tables here, little square ones for couples to sit at, but I've taken all that out and I've put in one of my work tables, and this is so that I can get on with my glass fibring in the right temperature. So I've got two electric fires in here, one down the end and one just there. I've just turned them on. It's about 4 degrees in here at the moment. Hopefully it's going to warm up. I'm going to put away some of this stuff that's been sitting there for the last couple of months, and maybe water the plant, which hasn't been watered for a while either. And then I'm going to bring in the first piece of work to do, and we'll get it set up and ready to fiberglass. I've only got to add 10mm onto the offending parts and then cut most of it off again once it's cured. Anyway, that's what I'm up to this morning, and more later. As a by the by, a couple of you have queried the wisdom of putting the cowling underneath the skirt around the front of the windscreen. Well, I'm basically following the instructions. Every bee I've seen has done it this way, unless they've made some kind of custom cowling. But if you have a look here, you'll see the instructions. I've tried to follow the instructions as closely as possible so that we can all see where they're good and where they're bad. I'll just turn the camera around. And where are we? It is down here somewhere. Trim if necessary, blah blah blah. Fit top cowl half to alignment spacer, the firewall and the lower cowl half. Top cowl slides underneath windshield skirt flange. That's on the set of instructions I've got, which I believe are up to date. The other thing I noticed is that it does actually tell you to fit the lower cowling first and then the upper cowling second. And that didn't work for me, but that's just me. It may work for other people, but it didn't really work for me, because the top cowling I found was pretty accurately cut, whereas the bottom cowling was not. Well, it was difficult to tell, because the trouble is the bottom cowling, when you actually fit it to the fuselage, of course it has mass, and it's a moulding, and depending on how it came out of the mould, it's potentially not exactly the shape that they were intending. And that was the case with mine. Mine was slightly out of shape on the front left-hand corner, effectively, which is what led me to install it incorrectly, and it wouldn't fit with the top cowling when I actually went to put to fit the top cowling. Of course, you can't tell this until you've actually got the top cowling in place and you've trimmed it to fit. So it's a bit of a catch-22 kind of thing where you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't kind of thing. It's a tricky one to do. I don't know whether my mouldings were slightly out maybe, or one hadn't been trimmed quite square or whatever, but theoretically I think you should just be able to use them as they are. If you've built the airplane to the specification correctly. They were very close, but unfortunately mine was short in the wrong, too much is good, you can cut it off. Too little is not good. You then have to do this and do some glass fibring. Well, that's what we're all here for, to learn, to experience all these things, so you can't moan about it. Just got to get on and sort it out. More later. So I've taken the top cowling off of the engine now. Before I did that, I marked around the edge of the cowling with some reference lines up against the firewall effectively, and I'll show you those. In the places where I need to be able to measure the amount of extension that I need to put on to the top of the cowl, and it looks a little bit like this. So I've basically taken a line around where the windscreen surround protrudes out from the firewall, and it protrudes out on mine at about 18 millimeters. So I've chosen 16 millimeters as a reference to give us a tiny bit of clearance, and so I've drawn that line, and this needs to be 16 millimeters from that line, which is about where my finger is, which incidentally is about the amount that I cut off. I think I cut off about 4 mil, but anyway, so I'm putting back basically what I cut off. On this edge here, I don't need to do any adjustment at all. That is perfect. But on the other side, I've got another reference line, which is 25 millimeters from the end of the fuselage, so I can measure that way. And to give you an idea, it's basically an inch. We've got to add on, not that much, but a bit, probably eighth, somewhere between an eighth. Yeah, it's about an eighth of an inch, about 3 or 4 millimeters. So how am I going to do this? Well, I've been pondering this for some months, and what I'm actually going to use is some acetate sheet to build myself a sort of flexible mould, effectively. Can't think of another way of really doing it. It hasn't really got to be very strong or last for very long. I just need something that I can glass fibre against, just to pull that edge back out again. And so I bought myself a roll of acetate sheet, and the reason they use acetate sheet is that fiberglass doesn't stick to it. You can try, but glass fibre will not stick to acetate sheet. So it's a great thing for making or stopping glass fibre sticking to things, basically. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut some acetate sheet, and I'm basically going to make a strip that goes right the way around here like this and sticks out a few inches from there, and I'm going to stick it on using double-sided sticky tape. This is the one I'm using for the edge, which is a thin double-sided sticky tape, and then at the back edge I'm going to use the wider double-sided sticky tape to hold the back edge down. This is going to be fraught, and I'm probably going to lose my temper with it a few times, and I'm not even sure it's going to work, but we shall try. And then if I'm successful, I'll turn the thing up the other way and put on one coat of resin over the offending area first, and then add some, I don't know what I'm going to use, the mat, the woven sheet, or the woven strips that I've got. I've got a bit of everything here, so we'll see what happens. So we've got ordinary mat, we've got some coarse woven sheet there, some fine woven sheet, and then we've got the woven strips in various different thicknesses. And went out and bought some extremely cheap. They're like those coffee cups that come out of a machine. They're made of cardboard, with plasticized cardboard, so they're easily disposable. Some extremely cheap and cheerful brushes, because to wash everything out after you've done this, you need a lot of acetone, and it gets very messy. And to be quite honest, for what I'm doing, I think I'll just waste the brushes. I might even turn them into a bit of art. I've done that before, and let them set in the resin at jaunty angles with a few other things, and turn them into some kind of art thing when I've finished. But anyway, we'll see. As I say quite often, more later. Well, so far so good. I've cut the acetate and I've stuck it on with a double-sided sellotape, and it looks a bit like this. You can hardly see the acetate. There's the edge of the acetate there. I've stuck it on with double-sided sticky tape right along this edge here, and then I've got some wider, older stuff which has gone a bit yellow, holding down the back, and then I've got two strips running along here, or three strips running along here, holding it down all the way around and down this side, so that I've got a good edge all the way around, and it follows exactly the contour of the moulding. So what's next? Next, I need to turn it up the other way and apply some resin to it, scratch up the surface of the original moulding, and so it takes, and I'll report back more later. A quick addendum. I've turned it upside down, and now you can see it from this side. And basically I'm going to build out some fiberglass here, and then once I've taken it out, I'll be putting a band over the top to make it structurally sound, hopefully. The good news is nobody's ever going to see this because it's on the inside and underneath that lip on the under the window surround. So even if it's not that pretty, it won't show. But I'm sure it'll be all right. We'll see. More later. So just so you can follow along with my failures and mistakes, I'm just mixing up some resin. This resin, I think, is a couple of years old, so it has the potential to go off very quickly. As resin ages, it goes off a lot quicker when it's exposed to the atmosphere. This particular resin comes with a hardener. You're supposed to put 2% of the hardener in with the resin. I've got 100 grams of resin here, so I'm going to put 2 grams or just over 2 grams of hardener in it, and we'll see how that goes. Got my little set of kitchen scales there, 100 grams of hardener, and just turn that back on again. That's zeroed, and so now I've got to put 2 grams of that in there. Anyway, more later. So you can see basically what I've done there. I've put a layer of resin all the way around and all over the sheet as well, and we'll use that for the basis for our fiberglass thing. And you know when this stuff's starting to go because it starts to behave like treacle, like that's already well on its way to setting. Now that's about, I suppose, 20 minutes or so after I mixed it up, which is about right. If you put too much hardener in, it's going to get hot. I did have, when I was at school, making, we used to make glass fibre canoes at school, and one of the other pupils mixed up some that was far too much hardener in it, stuck it in a cupboard after he'd finished using it in the woodwork room, and caused a fire because it gets very, very hot if you put too much hardener in it. The reaction is very, very quick, and it gives off a lot of heat, and it did actually start to smoulder the other bits of wood that were in the cupboard. So don't do that. Right amount of hardener, it should go off, or start to go off in about half an hour or so. Anyway, we'll leave it to sort itself out. I'm going to go and get a cup of coffee now. Notice my hair's dry now as well, because I only just had a shower when I started talking to you earlier. And we'll come back and stick some glass tape, or I don't know which one I'm going to go for yet. I still haven't decided. More later.